Hello everyone, welcome back to GeekDisorder's web series over HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and jQuery. This is Lavik. I'll be walking you through this series. I wanted to go over kind of cascading style sheets, or CSS, and the rules that affect those style sheets. Okay, CSS refers to cascading style sheets, and this is because you can have more than one style sheet affect a single web page. And if more than one style sheet affects a web page, there need to be some rules on to which style is applied, and that's what we're going to go over today. And well, the cascade order for applying CSS to your web page, there are about 5 rules, and we're going to go over those 5. But first, I'm going to go ahead. I've got an HTML5 basic document sitting in front of me. I'm going to make a couple of elements so we can kind of see these rules in effect. And I'm just going to make a paragraph, and I'm just going to put this is my P, and there we go. Alright, so I'm going to be using embedded CSS at the moment. And so, the very first rule, the one that takes precedent over every other rule, is a rule where a important tag has been applied to a user style sheet. Alright, first off, what's a user style sheet? A user style sheet is a style sheet a user has created for their web browser that overrides the normal web browser rules. And so what this does is it's mostly used when someone has a hard time seeing the screen or reading what's on the screen. A user will create a style sheet, and they will usually enlarge the text, change the text size, make it bigger, so they can have an easier time reading what's on the screen. And so if there's one of these rules out there, then it can affect the way your web page looks. If you don't specify, the size or something like that, just know that there's a chance. Most users don't create these, but there is a chance that some users do, and your text size will most likely get bigger. And so that's the first rule. Now remember, I said it has to specify an important on the style. So what does this look like? Well, an important tag, if I have, say, P for my paragraph, and let's see, I want to, okay, let's say I want to change the size of the text of my paragraph. And so I just go ahead and do, font size. Alright, and I'm going to use 3EM. Okay. Now, if I want to apply an important tag to this, it'd be an exclamation mark and then the word important, just like that. Okay, and so that's what a user might have done. They might have created a size for the font on their for their browser and applied an important tag to that, so it overrides every other style sheet out there. So no matter what web page they go to, the font is going to be bigger so they can read it. And so that's the number one rule: a user style sheet that has an important rule, and that's going to override everything. There's nothing you can do to change that, because that's the number one rule. The second rule is if you create a web page and you specify one of your rules as important, like I just did right here for this web page. I have the font set to 3EM, and I have specified it as important. This right here will override everything except for a user style sheet with an important specification. Okay, so this works just like normal, except you have the importance in there, and it's going to override everything but the user style sheet with the important specification. And we'll go ahead and, forget to save. This in Firefox. Okay, and that's about what our text looks like. There's really no difference except for we have this important tag here. Alright, the next rule is the normal rules for a web page. So I mean, just create your style sheets, and those rules will be applied next. So the important for you putting in important, it really doesn't do much unless you want to make sure a rule is enforced above all your other ones. So there's that. And then next we have normal rules of a user style sheet. Okay, so if a user creates a style sheet and they just want to change up how web pages look sometimes, they can create normal rules, just like normal CSS for us, and change up how most web pages look. The only way you will override these is if you create some CSS, which you'll be doing anyways, and or if you create CSS and put a important tag. Both of those will override. So usually you don't have to worry about user style sheets without the important tag, because most of the time you're going to be creating CSS and you're going to format your web pages, and it's going to override the normal user style sheet. Okay, and then lastly we have the default rules for the web browser. So that's what your web browser determines, how font sizes, colors, and stuff like that. Those rules are at the very bottom of the totem pole. Everything else is going to override those. Okay, so the main thing you'll want to get here is the important tag right here. You can specify some of your CSS is important. CSS is important, and then also remember you have to keep in mind in the back of your head that a user style sheet with an important tag will override your CSS no matter what you do on your web pages. So most of the time, as I said, that'll be changing the font sizes for people that have a hard time seeing the screen. Okay, now there are a couple other rules, and the outside of those, and more general, and that is your CSS. Let's say you have some IDs, some classes, then of course your elements, and you have a CSS for all of these. Say you have a ID that turns your text red. You have a class that turns it blue, and for paragraph you turned it gray. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do some of this. I'm just going to do color, and we said gray. There we go. And then up here I am going to create, let's see, an ID, and I'm, let's say I said red. Okay. Alright, let's change the color to red. Alright, then I said we had a class, and we changed it blue, so I'm going to name that blue. Okay, I'm going to change the color to blue. Alright, so right now if I save and I run this in Firefox, it's gray. That's because this rule right here for my paragraph is the one that's taking effect, and it's gray. If I apply down here, if I apply a class and my blue class, and I save, the text is blue. Although right here I'm saying that every paragraph should have gray text. Blue class is more specific than a general element. A general element, every paragraph element is gray. But if I add a class to it and say that's blue, because the class is more specific, I'm aiming more towards a certain element with the class, that one will take effect. That one overrides the general paragraph. So it changes the color to blue. Alright. Now if I also go in here and I create me an ID, or I've already created an ID, if I add that ID right here and save and run this, you can see the text is now red. The reason is, as you know, an ID can only affect one element, okay, because it's made for that specific element. And so a class can affect multiple elements, in a paragraph, of course, every paragraph right here will have gray. Anything I put blue on will have blue, and the one thing I put red on will have red. That's because a ID is the most as it's as specific as you can get. An ID is the most specific. It will override anything that you put it on. So if I put an ID on this paragraph or on anything, all the formatting I put inside that ID will override any other formatting I try to apply. So if I try to add a class, or if as with this paragraph, I try to do anything else down here in this paragraph that's already done in this ID, the rules in the ID will override all of those. All right, the class is more specific than a general element. Okay, a attribute selector. If you remember, like you can target like the href or every class or anything like that. That is also more specific, or a pseudo class. Okay, so all of those will override a general element. An element, the general element, and a pseudo element, those are on the same level. Okay. All right, and there is some other stuff as far as how specific you can get. If I have say this class right here, blue, and let's see, and I create down here, I'm gonna combine paragraph with my class, and if you remember, you do that just like that. All right, and I say that the color is orange. All right, so for some reason, anything I put the class on, I want that to be blue. Just paragraphs without the class are gonna be gray. And for some reason, I decided if the paragraph has the class blue, I want it to be orange. And that will, oops, I left on the ID here, and of course, as you can see, ID overrides even this. So I'm going to remove the ID. There we go. I'm going to save again. I'm going to run. As you can see, this text is now orange. That is because when you add these two together, the more specific you get, like I'm saying, a paragraph and a class, the more specific you get, the more it will override. So a paragraph and a class will override a class and an element. So you can kind of play around with it. Just remember, the more specific you get, ID being the most specific, then you have classes, attribute selectors, and pseudo classes. If you start combining classes and pseudo classes and elements and stuff like that, the more specific you are with your CSS, the more targeted, the more it's going to override. All right. Okay. Well, that's about it for how cascading rules work. I will put the cascading rules, the 5 I listed, and also about the ID, class, and attribute selectors and stuff like that in the description. And so this has been Live It with GeekDisorder. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do like our content, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see y'all next time.